Hi and welcome back to LDF-Designs. In today's video I am repurposing a substrate. I had created a painting on this substrate and just really didn't like it, and it wasn't in any way that I could continue working on it, so I scraped everything off of it and restarted. So at this point I'm just applying a little bit of base layer clear encaustic. This piece is a 6x6 ampersand encaustic panel, and I do have a little bit of a stucco mixture that I tinted with a little paint on the board. So at this point I'm using these distress inks, spraying these on some mulberry paper, and then I'm making sure that that stays dry, and I'm going to embed that into the encaustic. After I dried it with my little heat gun there, I went ahead and pulled out this Sumi ink that I have, and I'm going to go ahead and make some marks onto that paper as well. And then again, I will go ahead and get some of that prepared and dip it in the encaustic, and then I will embed it onto my panel. I also wanted to see what would happen if I put a little bit of this on the surface of the encaustic, so I pulled out this little plastic round thing that I have and went ahead and dipped that into the ink, and I am placing that onto the surface, and then I will let that dry and give it a quick fuse before I go ahead and embed this piece of mulberry paper. I definitely was trying to create some layered texture within the piece, as well as just some different tones because of all of the different colors involved. Once I dipped that into the encaustic and placed it onto the warm surface, I went ahead and took some parchment paper and burnished that a little bit just to get all of the air out from underneath that paper. If there are any little air bubbles left, once you do this, you can take like I have that dental tool, something sharp, and just poke the air bubbles to release the air. You want to do your best to get all of the air bubbles out from underneath that as you're placing it on the piece, so that it doesn't come up later. At this point I started to apply some other different colors of encaustic. I have this cerulean gray on my palette, and then I also have a little bit of a red iridescent color. I'm not sure if it's one that I made or if it was one that I purchased, to be honest. It's already melted and into one of my tins, so I no longer have a label on it. But you'll see me using that, as well as some white and clear encaustic. And I forgot I also have some Payne's Gray that I'm using. So this is not a black, it's a Payne's Gray, and it's a really great color. And I was trying to create a little bit of a horizon line. That was my goal with this piece. I'm doing a little bit of study on creating some abstract horizons or landscape style paintings. I certainly am not creating a landscape as you would typically maybe imagine one, but I did want to give it that type of a feeling. So at this point I went ahead and pulled out my oil pastels. I got this set on sale a couple years ago, and I just really love them. They give me access to some colors that I don't otherwise have in my encaustic paints. I love to use them on the surface of encaustic, and you can also get away with using them under the encaustic. If you do use a thick layer of them, the encaustic doesn't want to stick to it real well, so you do want to use them sparingly, or at least that's been my experience. But I like to use them on the surface. You do want to make sure that the surface of the encaustic is not too warm, or else the oil pastel just pushes through the encaustic and doesn't write on it. So it does take a little patience to have the wax be the correct temperature. But you can make anything. In this case, I kind of was smearing them in to make a color, but you can also make lines or shapes or whatever you'd like. You just want to give it a light fuse when you're done. I decided to add a little more white to that top section. I was just trying to create a better contrast. And then to set that oil pastel on the surface, once it cooled a little bit, I went ahead and put a layer of clear encaustic over it, infusing that in. And that should really help set those lines in there so they don't move around on me. One of the last things that I'm going to do then is take those inks, those distressing inks, and go ahead and spray those on the surface of the encaustic. I'm going to let them dry, and then I'm going to give them a really light fuse to set in those spray dots, which you'll see here in just a moment. And as I do some finishing things to this, that'll just about wrap this one up. You can see some more pictures of this over on my Instagram page. I did end up putting it into a black frame, and it set it up really nicely. So thank you very much for joining me today. Feel free to leave me a comment. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please feel free to do so.